Good afternoon, Chairman Newsom and Chairman and members of the Commission. My name is Denis Bilodeau, and I serve as the President of the Board of Directors of the Orange County Water District. Joining me here today are members of our management staff and board members, including Sean DeWayne, Kathy Green, Steve Sheldon, and Dina Wynn. The Orange County Water District was formed in 1933 by a special act of the California State Legislature to protect Orange County's rights to water in the Santa Ana River, which provides the main source of water for the region's groundwater basin. The district manages the groundwater basin that provides a reliable, high-quality, portable water source to 19 cities and retail water districts that serve 2.5 million customers in North and Central Orange County. We are here today to urge you to approve the Huntington Beach Desalination Project Supplemental EIR and Lease Amendment. The district's interest in seawater desalination, and specifically the Huntington Beach project, is not a new development and predates most of the recent drought. In fact, in the 1970s, the district constructed a pipeline from the ocean to its Fountain Valley campus, along with a small ocean desalination plant to consider the cost and feasibility of constructing a large-scale plant. In 2010, the district signed an MOU with Poseidon for the consideration of the purchase of water from the proposed desalination plant. And in 2013, the district hired a financial advisor to evaluate the financial feasibility of the district purchasing the full 50 million gallons a day of drinking water to be produced by the facility. And in 2015, the district's board of directors voted to approve a water purchase agreement term sheet for the purchase of 50 million gallons a day of drinking water from the proposed project. The term sheet was approved by the board after numerous public meetings and review and amendments to the term sheet that were proposed by a 30-member Citizens Advisory Committee. It is the district's mission to provide the cities and retail water district it serves with a reliable, adequate, high-quality water supply at the lowest reasonable rate possible in an environmentally responsible manner. The attached pie charts illustrate the current and future projected water supplies that could be used to meet the demand within the district's service territory. The Huntington Beach project is identified as a potential future water supply in the district's groundwater management plan, and the facility's 56,000 acre-foot per year capacity is the single largest source of new local drinking water supply available to the county. I want to point out that the district's groundwater replenishment system is the largest potable reuse project in the world and has been instrumental in moving Orange County away from climate-driven water supplies. Today, the district recharges over 100,000 acre-feet a year of this highly treated wastewater into our groundwater basin. The board has approved plans for a final expansion of the groundwater replenishment system to a final 134,000 acre-feet a year. Desalination provides the district with a high-quality, locally controlled, and drought-proof source that reduces the demand on imported water sources that are climate-driven. And my final slide illustrates that the progress we have made over the last decade in moving away from climate-driven water supplies, in addition to offsetting imported water demand and moving away from climate-driven water supplies, water from the desal facility could provide flexibility in how the district manages the groundwater basin. Specifically, the desalinated water could be used to augment supplies we inject into our Talbot seawater barrier to help prevent seawater intrusion into the groundwater basin and to buffer against any reductions in base flows from the Santa Ana River. As the slide points out, we have historically taken more than our adjudicated rights to the Santa Ana River and cannot be certain that water will always be there for us. Let me make sure I'm on the right slide. Yes, I am on the right slide. At this point in time, the district does not require changes to the distribution system as studied in the City of Huntington Beach's 2010 supplemental EIR. A final decision on integrating the desalinated water will come after the project has received all of its permits, and based on those results, the district concludes the project is technically and economically feasible. The Huntington Beach desal plant provides the district and Orange County with a unique opportunity to add a large quality of locally controlled, drought-proof water to our supply portfolio. The district respectfully requests your support of the staff recommendation. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, everybody, hold on. Thank you very much. Hold on one second, please. That concludes the presentation?
No,
Yes.
we have one more speaker for the Poseidon presentation.
Perfect,
That's
wonderful. And then we have one quick question from Commissioner.
Yeah, could I ask a question of the Water District before we head on? Can you talk a little bit about conservation in the district? And then also, I'd like to hear if you have any thoughts on, one of the issues that has been raised with me with certain groups in particular is the price of desalinated water versus other efforts. And I would like to hear, I would like to hear what your thoughts are.
And forgive me, Commissioner.
Sure.
You got, I appreciate the emotions, and I appreciate the significance all of us, I mean, all of you particularly place on this moment. Please be respectful on both sides of the aisle so we can move this forward. Thank you, Commissioner.
And the direction of my question may not elicit the applause, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the other kinds of innovative water solutions and the relative costs of those, because my understanding is some of the other options, aside from desal, are also can lead to more costly water provision. So if you could just talk about both of those things.
Yes, Commissioner. First, I want to recognize my colleague Philip Anthony is here. I neglected to say that. In terms of conservation, we work closely with our sister agency, the Metropolitan Water District of Orange County, who's a MET member agency. They're really the lead in terms of implementing conservation measures on the consumer level, with low flow toilets, shower heads, irrigation timers, and those types of things. And they have really sort of saturated the market with those items. In fact, here in Orange County, in spite of the fact our population over the last 20 years has gone from 2 million to 2.5 million, we use the same amount of water that we did 20 years ago. So we've done a lot of conservation hardening in that regard, tremendous. In terms of the price of the water, it's something that my board is very focused on. Our term sheet contemplated a price that would be a premium to MET imported water of between 0 and 20%. We will determine the final price once Poseidon has obtained all their permits and we understand the mitigation measures that have been implemented on them, because that is a big component of the price. So we do have a price that we're comfortable with, and that is outlined in our term sheet. And in terms of, you mentioned other water sources, we have the groundwater replenishment system that currently produces 100 million gallons a day. We're looking to ramp that up with a final expansion, and that will ramp it up to a little over 130 million gallons a day. That will cost us about somewhere about $260 million to complete that final expansion, and currently we're seeking grants and low-interest loans to make that happen. And we got really good news recently that we are on the list to get a WIFIA loan from the federal government, and that will cover about half of the cost. We're hoping to obtain the other half from the state revolving fund, but unfortunately it's oversubscribed right now, so we may have to go to the bond market to finance that.
Yeah.
And and lastly, I'm sorry, I should mention, we have a very aggressive stormwater capture program. We work with the Army Corps of Engineers to store stormwater behind Prado Dam and release it slowly so we can capture all of that water. A decade ago, the Army Corps would operate the dam such that they would open the gates and it would rush to the Pacific Ocean, but now we have a very close working relationship with them and conserve every drop of that water that we can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just following on Commissioner Ortega's question, the analysis with respect to these various water sources, did that include the expansion of the recycling effort? And I guess what I'm looking for is, have you fully considered all these alternatives before really looking at the water that would be produced by Poseidon, which obviously is going to be the most expensive water?
Yes, we certainly have. Really, the only opportunity we have beside Poseidon is the expansion of the groundwater replenishment system, and we are all in on that. Our board has already voted to go forward with that expansion. It's in design right now, and now we're going through the process of the financing component. Poseidon would be yet another source beyond that, and it would offset imported water sources and also contend with the Santa Ana River, the base flow of it continues to decline because of drought, and also our friends in the Inland Empire, they are now recycling. And so the Santa Ana River during the summer, it's not snow melt, that's discharge from sewage treatment plants that's highly cleaned up, and then we take that water, put it through wetlands actually, and then we put it into our groundwater basin. But that base flow continues to decline, and that's something that's somewhat alarming to us. So we need to continue to look for and develop new water sources to offset that.
Okay. And I know there's been a lot of back and forth with various parties on this very issue, and I think what really has been missing is really the analysis of these alternative water sources as compared to what would be produced by the Poseidon facility. And it's a little hard to figure out whether the Poseidon water that would be produced is really more, I'll use the word, arbitrary in nature with respect to a desire to replace imported water as compared to really being integral to meeting the overall water needs.
Well, again, we have looked at all of the...
Or discretionary, I guess. is
Yeah,
better.
I mean, we are obviously looking at all of our alternatives. The Poseidon water is, it's a local source, and it offsets imported sources, and it's reliable because it's made locally, and it takes us off being dependent from imported sources, and that leaves met water available for other communities across Southern California.
I guess, is there any possibility that the water that would be produced by the Poseidon facility be more than what you need?
No, I don't believe that would be the case. All of the water would be used, most certainly, because what would it mean? There's more met water that's imported than would ever be produced out of that facility. So it would just be less purchases from the Metropolitan Water District. And in looking at the financials the most recent that we've looked at, it does cross over at a point in where the Poseidon project, that source is actually cheaper than imported sources. And that's obviously very appealing to us. So, and something that I can tell you that all of my board is looking at very carefully.
So do you remember at what point that crossover takes place?
We're looking at about a year 11 or 12 right now is what we're looking at. But trust me, I'm trying to crank that down.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it. And then you have one more speaker?
If I could just say one more thing, if the pleasure of the chair. We've heard so many different arguments against this project. Now the latest argument is the cost of the water. We've heard environmental arguments, and I think that Poseidon has solved those issues. We've heard that the intake valve will bring in large fish. That's not the case. There's been videos shown gathering opposition that, flippers going to be sucked in by the intake valve. That is not the case. And so now it's about the money, and that is not an issue. We have less and less water off the Santa Ana River. There's plans now for 30,000 acre feet to be recycled in the upper watershed. We need this water not just because we want the luxury of having it. We need this water to protect our ratepayers. It's our job to find more water for our constituents. So I hope that you will look at it from that global point of view, that we believe that we need the water. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Sir,